Game of Thrones 2nd edition, the card game LCG.
It's my number 6.
Yes, it's my number 6. It's not Tom's number 6. It doesn't come anywhere near your top 10, does it? Oh dear.
It's alright, we'll have a nice conversation.
Yeah, me and you can talk about this. Yeah. Well, although I know you have another LCG.
Do you want to do your spiel?
Yes, it is a 2-player game.
You. Gary Smith's Law, 60 seconds.
Smith's Law.
Smith's Law. Smith's Law. You've wasted 6 of your Gary Smith seconds. Now 10.
Okay. I get the idea that I'm running out of time. It's a 2-player game. It's an LCG. Every turn, you play cards down onto the table. 9 out of 10 times it's going to be characters from the popular book series, A Song of Ice and Fire. Yes, it's not from the show because I don't have the right.
There is a version that is from
the show, yes, yeah. but we don't get that one. And there, you will battle your opponent by sending your people on challenges, and winning a challenge will give you a certain effect. A military challenge will mean someone on the opposing team will die. An entry challenge, you'll take a card at random out of your opponent's hand, denying them of cards to play later. And a power challenge will allow you to essentially score points in a way. And the real thing that for me sets this apart from things like Netrunner. I'm done with my Gary Smith time now.
No, it's okay.
This is now just a general
yeah,
timer.
Yeah.
I'm just bored.
The thing that really sets this apart for me, because I was a big fan of Netrunner when it came out. We all were.
Yeah.
Yeah, you.
I was.
Yeah,
I feel like we're talking about an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. You still quite enjoy Netrunner?
Yeah.
Netrunner.
But the thing that sets us apart for me is the plot phase and your plot deck.
You should say like.
Yeah, so I'm about to explain what a plot deck is.
I know. I was going to say you should have said how you could win, but that's fine. We'll get onto that in a second because that's important.
Winning isn't everything.
In the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Winning isn't everything.
It's House Sedgley's motto.
Yeah, winning isn't everything. The plot phase. So each round you'll play a plot card, which will give you essentially an overview of what your round is aimed at. And it's just such a nice mechanic, and you can have a brilliant deck, but if your plots aren't right, then your deck's just gonna sputter.
Well, with the Netrunner comparison, it's like your agendas, but it's even more important than your agendas because the one thing the plot deck does that I don't know of many other card games doing is you choose the plot. Yeah, it's 7 cards. You choose which one you play. There's no, I drew a bad part. Well,
it governs your economy, how many cards you can play down on the table. It governs your initiative, so who goes first, or the choice of going first.
How much damage you do on your challenges, like which
they're a massive part of the game.
How many cards you can keep at the end of each round.
No, it's quite a telling play. Like it's one of the things that I've noticed with you guys playing is that the interplay between plots has become huge. Like playing. There was a game where someone plays the card that cancels all the money off a card.
Yeah.
On the turn when
with naval
superiority. Yeah. And like that, I knew you were going to play that, so I played that. Or like, I played the card that means you can't initiate this unless X. Oh no, one thing I didn't want to see happen.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like you're gearing up. He's gearing up to this next turn, so I'm going to have to try and counter that or play around it somehow. That interplay between.
I think it might be the best bit of the game.
Yeah,
possibly. Yeah. It's because there's so much control there compared to other card games.
Yes. And the way you build decks around that idea of Well,
the plot is the skeleton.
Yes.
Of the deck, and
then Game of Thrones is an interesting one for me because spoiler warnings. It's not on my top 10. But it's very close.
You can stop watching the series now.
Mainly because I really, really enjoy it, and I think there's a really fascinating sort of the way you play Game of Thrones is very, very interesting, and it almost it's a little bit like playing a game of chess, in some respects, in that you put down these pieces onto the table, and then once you've committed to something, that's it effectively.
Yeah.
So you go into a military challenge or something like that, or you go into an intrigue challenge, and then the effects of that and the repercussions from it are almost immediate. Things will hit you, maybe things won't hit you.
I'm just thinking that on this part of the video I'm going to have to put a little subtitle that says, please note Ben has never played chess. Like Ben moves his pawn and he's like, are you going to play an event card? There aren't cards in chess, Ben. Ha!
No, but
That's what you want me to think.
No, but the whole emphasis on sort of every move you make is incredibly critical to what you do. And there are occasionally times where it's like, yeah, I'm just moving the pawn effectively. But there's those times when you're moving a big character and you're doing a big challenge, or maybe you overcommit in something, and that's like a little bit like moving your queen ant into a vulnerable position, and then the enemy capitalises on it and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think it generally has some really nice sort of tactical play to it. Now, generally, I tend to approach most games from a viewpoint of I don't really care that much about the tactical aspect of things, so that's why it's not so high on my list. But I just, for some reason, I really enjoy playing Game of Thrones, and I love the theme of it. I love all the characters. It's really nice. The artwork's fantastic as well.
It's amazing.
It actually does play well in the multiplayer format as well.
That's another thing I was going to say. You said 2-player games.
Yeah,
so that's how you play it.
Where a lot of FFG games don't
Most
play.
card games.
So I mean, Invasion tried, but it failed. Netrunner doesn't have one, obviously. I think Conquest may, in some way, have.
Star Wars has got 4.
Star Wars,
yeah.
It's one of those things that's a very rare thing.
Cthulhu.
It's a very rare thing to happen when it comes to a living card game.
Lord of the Rings.
So Lord of the Rings is great, obviously, but it's a cooperative one, whereas this
Lord of the Rings.
But I generally think they've done a really good job on this, and it was a fantastic thing from them, sort of reinventing first edition.
Yeah.
I think I've not played it, but a lot of people said it's basically just much better than first edition.
Well, it's like most of the FFG reworks of previous editions of games. They don't often take a backward step, do they?
I think that it's one of those games as well at the moment, which can be played in very different ways as well. I mean, I'm a big proponent of making quite themey decks and things like that. So decks that have a certain slant to them. So a particular version of Knights on the Watch with lots of wildlings or something like that.
Knights on the Watch.
Knights of the Watch.
Oh.
What did I say?
Night's Watch.
Night's
called.
Night's
on the Watch.
Night's Watch with wildlings and things like that and stuff. But then equally, you can go the other end of the spectrum and play it very hardcore, and we're seeing a lot of decks.
Do you think that that's the problem, though? That this falls into the same problem that's poisoned Netrunner and... in my feeling, anyway, because... And this is just me, because I hate playing anything that feels like...
familiar to something else, you mean?
I mean, I almost want to use the word power gamer.
I think
I'm playing this because it's the best. Now, obviously, you make good card selections in Game of Thrones, and you make the most efficient deck that you can. But it's in the same way that I never played Andromeda in Netrunner, and I never played Near Earth Hub, because it almost feels like playing the game on, not cheat mode, because you don't automatically win.
Autopilot, maybe.
Maybe an aimbot.
Wait, it's one of those things that I think
it
has
just
hit
feels cheap.
It's hit Game of Thrones at the moment, I think.
Because the Miriam Mazdur thing.
Miriam Mazdur, because the pool is quite small.
Yeah.
So, relatively speaking, the kind of decks you can make are very much focused towards one way of playing.
I think no matter where you are,
it's almost decided by the plots, actually. I guess, but
I think no matter where you are in an LCG, in terms of cards that have come out, I think no matter where you are in that, there will always be decks that are potentially stronger than others.
Oh right? Yeah,
there will always be.
There'll be power creep and power shifts.
There'll always be that. But
that's the pleasure, though.
Yeah, but as new cards out, obviously the meta changes, and there's an interesting thing because obviously at the moment there's a very big Lanny Dragon thing going on and Targ Lion thing going on. But interestingly enough, if you look at the results of the regionals and the nationals and the store championships coming out of the US, it was very much that. But when you look everywhere else in the world, lots of other...
It's almost Starks most of
lots of other factions are winning.
Yeah.
Like I think every faction has won everywhere else in the world.
Well, that's impressive.
It was only in the US that the whole Lanny Dragon thing was happening. Yeah. Now maybe because that was timed at that time. At the time that was the thing, and there was no one had quite worked out the natural counter to it.
Yeah.
Or maybe people just noticed that deck was winning, so everybody kind of played it.
Mm.
But I think with Game of Thrones because it's quite young still. It's only
a
cycle and a
LCG,
half
so,
and the deluxe
Yeah.
out.
Two deluxe, aren't they? Is the Lannister one not out yet?
Not out yet.
And,
No.
out in a week or so.
Yeah. It's growing.
To date,
So-
video, but
Well, they're currently stuck on ships in the Pacific.
it's arrived at some of
Oh,
the
it arrived
places.
now.
But anyway,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But yeah, no matter where you are in LCG, I think you'll always have that issue. And you know, you say you don't like playing Andromeda and Near Earth Hub, but I mean that's fair enough. But I think if you want to go into the tournament scene, then you should try and build and you want to try and win those tournaments.
Yeah.
Then you build.
I think
what the strongest.
I think something that certainly comes like this is very much a you game.
Mm.
That's something that I think should be said actually. And I think that's why it's very high up on your list. And there's a reason another LCG is on my list in place of this one because it does something slightly different that I think adds a little bit more to the game experience. But I genuinely think that Game of Thrones is a very, very competent, efficient, well thought out, well planned game.
Yeah.
I think
It's a good LCG.
It's a very solid LCG, and it deserves the tournament scene that it has.
And I mean the other thing
but
the other thing obviously is that you can have very strong decks, but if you're not, but you can have a weak pilot.
Yeah, no, I'm not
so-
suggesting,
no,
of course,
no.
in any LCG you pick up the deck and you win.
No.
But
Dan does
it's
anyway.
all about it's all about fun, guys.
Yeah, no, but
And it's when people play those decks that deny their opponent fun. Like as good as HB in Netrunner is, it never stops your opponent from playing the game.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like in games. That's what this when I hear you describe this misery Mazdur thing. There's no game there anymore with that. And some of the things that I hear from Martell, it sort of soils the game. Instead it invents its own meta, which people might enjoy solving that puzzle, but for me I don't like don't like that part of
I wouldn't say there's anything near a solitaire deck.
No,
at the moment. There's nothing like that.
There's nothing comparable to DLR, basically.
No.
that has
there's no
which
is a
come
net
out.
thing.
It's come out. They're about to come out.
There's no solitaire deck. I think the closest you're probably going to get
I know what you're going to say.
is Night's Watch with Old Bear at the wall.
Where they
what
effectively
do you
sit
say?
I thought you were going to say Caitlin Stark, the new Caitlin Stark, where she's just like pow 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 pow.
No, because even then there are plenty.
And
of ways
Night's
to
Watch player
counter
can effectively just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah, like we've played a game before where I was set up and there was nothing I could do.
But that's the thing that the Night's Watch are meant to do.
Exactly. Now that's why
Yeah.
that didn't feel whatever.
Yeah.
That's because that is how they are designed. It's not like some exploitable thing. They're meant to play that way, and they have weaknesses.
I think that's a big
But
thing
they
to say actually for this is that each of the different factions feel like they have a very definite theme to them.
Yeah.
The Night's Watch,
Test it. Night's Watch.
the Night's Watch feel like they're defending the wall. They've got this very heavy
Lannister.
defense there. The Lannisters have got lots more intrigue, lots of things that tie off that as
They've
well.
got
money.
They've
Martell.
a lot of big characters.
Martell have got the denial and the fact that they like to lose, but it's all in part of their ploy.
Denial
Tyrell.
needs to win.
Tyrell now
Hard
have
one.
very much of a push towards knight, so it's all about honour and stuff like
now
that.
Tyrell also have a flood the board aspect as well.
There's a lot
Stark!
of ways to get things out. Starks have got this very masochistic way of playing.
Yes.
They like to kill stuff, but in turn they also get killed quite a lot.
Greyjoy.
Greyjoys are fast, hard, brutal. They sneak through things. They're the raiders, effectively. The
Targaryens.
Targaryens have got a lot
Danny.
more. Have got
Sorry.
Danny and the dragons.
Go around one thing.
But I mean, Miriam Mazdur is a different side to it as well. But I think the main draw of the Targaryens is still very much a Danny.
Baratheon.
And the burn effects.
Baratheon.
And the
Power
Baratheons are
challenge.
almost they're a very slow, deliberate, power-based form
Nearly
of
exhausting your
Exhaust-
opponents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very much
Proven.
the Stannis way of playing, effectively.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's FFG. Of course, all the sides are going to be dripping in thing, but I don't see that just because they've done a good job, because we expect them to, it means it shouldn't count as a good job.
No, good game, but just
Right then.
not high enough on.
When
my
would
list.
you play it?
I would play it happily one-on-one against somebody, and I really enjoy going to the tournaments for this as well. So,
Cool. When would you play it?
Whenever I have
Whenever
time.
given the chance.
Yeah, whenever given a chance. Also just theory crafting decks.
Yeah,
It-
but you've
it-
always
it's
enjoyed
really
that, you
fun.
big
Yeah, no.
nerd.
He's actually a
Nerd!
he's actually a war gamer, making lists constantly.
No.
He's playing his cards.
Ugh.
Right.
What would it take to get you back into this game?
Oh, that's an interesting question because you asked me. I would have to know.
Like, would you come along to a random
No.
Thrones tournament?
No.
Okay.
Because people would still playing randomly bring the same exploitative crap.
But they can't. That's
They
the thing.
can.
No, but they
They get the two factors. You get Lanny and whatever.
Well, yeah,
like,
but
I don't
that's going to be
ever-
one in maybe
Like,
9
I would play
players.
this against you guys, maybe, but I find Game of Thrones a quite miserable game, in that it's got so much more of a choke hold on it than Netrunner.
That's why I say it's got
like,
almost that chess
I
thing to
would
it, where it's
probably
like,
rather
I am
play,
winning,
like,
kind of thing.
for instance, I would rather go to a Game of Thrones tournament than a Netrunner tournament.
Right.
But I would rather play Netrunner against you guys, us guys, than I would play Game of Thrones.
Right.
Because, like, you can lose Game of Thrones in the first or second turn, but it can take 3 more turns for the knife to sink in.
I'll come on to the feel of that a little bit when I talk about spoilers.
Like, there isn't really such a thing, when I played it anyway, as a Hail Mary. Like, oh my, OMG, I pulled it out of the bag.
It's a lot more
in
calculated.
Thrones, whereas I will always remember the Netrunner game that we played in Lie, where you were brain damaging my poor Noise to heck. He ran through, his brains dribbling out his ears, and I happened to hit R&D and win. Didn't deserve to win, but there are more of the moments I like. Also, it has one of the things I hate a lot in games, which is the
surprise.
Oh, you're going to do something. Oh, well, I played this, and that's one of the things I don't like about Netrunner is that Netrunner has started bringing in all this like BS. Whereas when Netrunner began, my turn was my turn.
It must be said though, the Game of Thrones sort of screw you kind of thing isn't so bad. It's not like Magic Blue levels.
No.
Because,
because
normally there's a distinct trigger to something happening.
Yeah.
And if you've played the game enough, you'll know about
that's
that.
the thing.
So.
If you've played the game enough, like that poor chap who you played, and he didn't
guys.
know that this one Night's Watch card existed.
Well, no.
That's not the game. That's not the game's fault.
Yeah.
Okay, but that guy could very easily have been me.
Yeah.
And I would have found that very.
But a better player. Not to say that the guy was bad, but a better player wouldn't have committed all of it to a certain.
Yeah, but, I mean that's the thing. Like I was watching the game, and as I was looking at him getting ready to do his challenges, I theoried it in a very different way that would have totally made Ben.
I
Yeah,
understand. But like for instance, when you talk about going and playing like an event, you two are aware of the meta.
Yeah.
And this is always the problem with LCGs. It's not Game of Thrones' fault.
I think the more stuff you do with the game, the more you'll enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
It's like a comedy sitcom. The more you put into the show, the more pleasure you derive from
I
it.
watch. We watch a lot of videos. We read a lot of forum posts.
It's a culture. It's like a group. It's an identity. I'm a Game of Thrones
Also,
player.
generally, one of the things for Game of Thrones that I think is very good is the community that has grown up around Game of Thrones Second Edition is very, very nice.
Does seem like
I have not met a horrible Game of Thrones player.
You've only met about 4 people because no one. No, I'm just.
Well, we've been to Northampton and we've done stuff.
Let's be
there.
fair. The Game of Thrones scene is nowhere near the size of the Netrunner scene.
No. But there have been Netrunner games where I felt like I can't believe I'm playing this person. But then there's not been that thing.
However, it should also be said that by comparison to other card games you can play, the Netrunner scene is lovely.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's always the way. Isn't it?
But yes,
it's nice,
generally, it's a very nice community, and if you want to play Game of Thrones, there is a lot of different avenues for you to do it, and especially the multiplayer scene is something that I think needs to be added to and grown.
I would much rather. I would play Game of Thrones melee. Yeah. Much more so than playing one-on-one.
Especially
because
now,
it balances itself. He's got that crazy combo. Let's get him. You've got that crazy combo. You're kicking my ass.
And importantly, it does stop the almost gang up mentality you sometimes get in these card games because it has the roles that you play. And
I think I would love to play. I would love to play melee again.
Yeah, melee.
It just takes some time.
Yeah, I'd like to play more melee.
Cool.
But